The lecture hall was massive. It could hold 300 students easily, and today almost 200 cadets filled the curved seats that rose up like steps toward the back wall. The room smelled like recycled air and nervous sweat. Blue lights glowed along the edges of the ceiling, and a giant holographic display floated at the front where the instructor would teach. Park Do-in sat in the first row. He was a young man with short black hair and calm dark eyes. His uniform was the same gray color as everyone else's, neat and simple. He held a small tablet for taking notes and waited quietly while the other cadets talked and laughed around him. Do-in was not like the other cadets. He knew this, but nobody else did. Not yet. The Galactic Military Academy on Station Velar 7 was famous across the known universe. Species from 100 different worlds sent their best young people here to learn, to train, and to become officers in the Galactic Union Fleet. There were tall insectoids with clicking mandibles, massive rock-skinned giants who needed special reinforced chairs, elegant serpentine beings who coiled in their seats, and dozens of other shapes and sizes that Do-hyun had learned to recognize over his 3 months at the academy. His seatmate was Killick, a Torvani who looked something like a praying mantis crossed with a grasshopper. Killick was nervous about everything. His large compound eyes blinked constantly, and his thin arms never stopped moving. "I heard this class is terrible," Killick whispered to Do-hyun. "Commander Thalos is very strict. He enjoys scaring cadets." Do-hyun nodded politely. "I am sure it will be fine." Killick made a clicking sound that meant doubt. The doors at the front of the hall slid open, and Commander Thalos entered. The room went silent immediately. Thalos was a Valoran, which meant he had 8 limbs, gray-blue skin, and 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face. He was tall and moved with the confidence of someone who had fought in many battles and won all of them. His voice was deep and filled the entire hall without effort. "Good morning, cadets," he said. Though his tone made it clear, he did not care if their morning was good or not. "Today we begin the Deathworld curriculum. Pay attention. This knowledge may save your pathetic lives someday." He tapped a control panel, and the holographic display came alive. A planet appeared, floating and rotating slowly. It was beautiful, Do-hyun thought. Blue oceans, green and brown land masses, white clouds swirling across its surface. "This," Commander Thalos announced, "is Earth. Classification: Category 12 Deathworld. The highest danger rating our system allows." Murmurs spread through the hall. Do-hyun kept his face completely still. "Earth is located in what we call the Orion arm of the galaxy," Talos continued. "It is a small planet, but do not let its size fool you. This world is a death trap. Nothing about it is safe. I will explain why." He zoomed the hologram in on Earth's surface. Mountains appeared, then oceans, then cities that the other cadets did not recognize. First, the atmosphere. Earth's air contains 21% oxygen. Thalos paused for effect. For those of you who failed basic chemistry, oxygen in high concentrations is explosive. One spark, and you burn. Earth's creatures breathe this poison constantly. Several cadets gasped. Killick's mandibles clicked rapidly. Second, water. Dihydrogen monoxide covers 70% of Earth's surface. It also falls from the sky regularly. Thalos made a disgusted sound. The natives call this rain. They walk through it as if being pelted by a corrosive substance is normal behavior. Do-hyun remembered standing in the rain in Bizen, letting the cool water wash over his face after a long summer day. He remembered the smell of wet pavement and the sound of droplets hitting leaves. He had loved the rain. He wrote "rain equals death liquid" in his notes and tried not to smile. Third, the gravity. Thalos displayed a number on screen. Earth's gravity is 1 standard G for most species in this room. Extended exposure would crush your internal organs, shatter your bones, or at minimum leave you exhausted and helpless. A large Grothian named Burrows shifted uncomfortably in his reinforced seat. He was twice Do-hyun's size, but had already complained several times about the station's 0.7 G environment being too heavy. Fourth, and perhaps most terrifying, is the planet's geological activity. Thalos showed videos now. The ground splitting open, buildings collapsing, mountains exploding with liquid fire, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. Earth's crust is unstable. The ground itself tries to kill you. The cadets watched in horror. Do-hyun remembered the earthquake drills at his school in Korea. Everyone hiding under desks. Teachers counting heads. It had been scary sometimes, but mostly it had been boring. Fifth, the wildlife. Thalos cycled through images. Bears, sharks, wolves, snakes, spiders. Earth-evolved predators at every level. In the water, on land, in the air. Some inject poison. Some crush their prey. Some simply tear their victims apart with teeth and claws. He paused on an image of a mosquito, magnified to show its needle-like mouth. This creature, he said quietly, drinks blood. It also carries diseases that have killed millions of Earth's natives. Millions. From an insect smaller than your smallest finger. The hall was completely silent. Sixth, the temperature extremes. Parts of Earth reach 60 degrees above freezing. Other parts drop to 90 degrees below. The natives live in both regions. Seventh, the natives themselves. Thalos pulled up images of humans, running, climbing, swimming, fighting. They call themselves humans. They are pursuit predators who evolved to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They break their own bones and heal. They poison themselves recreationally with substances they call alcohol. They expose themselves to solar radiation for fun and call it getting a tan. He let that sink in. Humans are not currently members of the Galactic Union, Thalos said. They were contacted 5 years ago, but integration is slow. Their world is too dangerous for standard diplomatic missions. We send drones instead. Don thought about the diplomats who had visited Seoul, how they had worn environmental suits and looked terrified of everything. How one of them had nearly fainted when a pigeon flew past. Let me be absolutely clear, Commander Thalos said, his 3 eyes scanning the room. No cadet in this room could survive a single rotation on Earth's surface. Not one of you. The gravity would weaken you. The atmosphere would poison you. The water would burn you. The wildlife would eat you. And the planet itself would shake you apart and bury you in fire. He smiled, which on a Valoran looked terrifying. That is why we study Deathworlds. So we know what to avoid. So we understand that some places in this universe are not meant for civilized life. Do-hyun accidentally snorted. The sound was small, but the room was quiet, and Commander Thalos had excellent hearing. His 3 eyes locked onto Do-hyun immediately. Something amusing, cadet? Every head in the room turned to look at the human in the first row, though none of them knew that was what they were looking at. Do-hyun kept his expression calm. No, Commander. I apologize. I had something in my throat. Thalos stared at him for a long moment. See that it does not happen again. Yes, Commander. The lecture continued, but Killick leaned close to Do-hyun and whispered, Are you all right? You look strange. Do-hyun nodded slowly. I am fine. I just find this lecture very educational. He turned back to his notes and wrote one more line at the bottom of the page. He forgot about the hurricanes. 2 weeks after the lecture, Commander Thalos announced a practical examination. Every cadet would enter a simulation chamber and try to survive. On Earth for 48 hours, Do-hyun stood in line, with 200 other cadets outside Simulation Chamber 7. The air was cold and tasted like metal. Everyone was scared. He could see it in the way they stood, the way they whispered to each other, the way some of them kept checking their equipment over and over. Killick stood next to him, trembling. "This is insane. They want us to die." "It is just a simulation," Do-hyun said gently. "We cannot actually die. But the fear feels real. The pain feels real. I heard a cadet from last year spent 3 days in medical recovery after a simulated bear attack." Do-hyun did not tell Killick that he had seen real bears before. On a school camping trip, a black bear had wandered near their tents. Their teacher had calmly told everyone to stay still and be quiet. The bear had sniffed around for 10 minutes, found nothing interesting, and walked away. Do-hyun had been 12 years old and mostly annoyed that he did not get a better. Photograph. Commander Thelos appeared at the front of the line. His voice boomed across the corridor. "Listen carefully, cadets. You will be divided into teams of 4. Your simulation environment is a temperate forest region, considered the mildest biome on Earth. You will have 48 hours to survive. No weapons, no advanced technology, only basic tools and your training." He smiled his terrible smile. "The simulation parameters are as follows. Oxygen at 21%. Gravity at 1 G, temperature between 10 and 25 degrees. Precipitation is possible. Wildlife includes bears, wolves, deer, and various insects. Good luck. You will need it." Do-hyun was assigned to Team 17. His teammates were Killick, a massive Grothian named Varos, and a serpentine Silithy named Varos. Varos was from a noble family and had been talking about his superior breeding since the moment they met. He immediately declared himself team leader. "I have studied Earth extensively," Varos announced as they entered the simulation chamber. "I know exactly what to do. Follow my commands and we might survive." The chamber door sealed behind them. Light flashed. When Do-hyun opened his eyes, he was standing in a forest dot. It looked exactly like home. The trees were tall and green. Sunlight filtered through the leaves and made patterns on the ground. Birds sang somewhere in the distance. A gentle breeze carried the smell of pine and earth. A small stream bubbled nearby. Do-hyun took a deep breath and felt his shoulders relax. He had not realized how much he missed this. The station always smelled like recycled air and cleaning chemicals. This smelled like life. His teammates were not relaxed. They were panicking. "The light is too bright," Killick whimpered, covering his compound eyes. "The gravity," Varos groaned, dropping to his knees. "I can barely stand." "Nobody panic," Varos said, though his voice was shaking. "We need to find shelter immediately. Away from the water. Water is dangerous." "The stream looks clean," Do-hyun said quietly. "We will need drinking water." Varos hasted him. "Did you not hear the lectures? Water on Earth is corrosive. We must avoid it at all costs." Do-hyun decided not to argue. He would let Varos lead for now and step in when necessary. Varos led them deeper into the forest, looking for shelter. He found a rocky area with some overhanging stones and declared it their base camp. It was not a bad choice, Do-hyun thought, though the ground was damp and there was no wind protection. "We should build walls," Do-hyun suggested. "The temperature will drop at night." "I give the orders here," Varos snapped. "We will rest first. The gravity is exhausting." They rested. An hour passed. Varos fell asleep. His massive body sprawled across the rocks. Killick sat with his knees pulled up to his chest, watching the trees with terrified eyes. Varos kept checking his scales for damage from the toxic air. Do-hyun stood up quietly. "I am going to gather some materials." "Do not go far," Varos said dismissively. "You will get lost and eaten." Do-hyun walked into the forest alone. He found fallen branches, dry leaves, and long flexible sticks perfect for weaving. He found a flat stone that would work for cutting. He found mushrooms that looked exactly like the ones his grandmother used to cook, and berries that he knew were safe to eat. He worked quietly and efficiently. Within an hour, he had built a frame for a shelter wall. Within 2 hours, he had woven branches and leaves into a decent windbreak. He collected dry wood for a fire and dug a small pit to contain it. When he returned to base camp, his teammates stared at him. "What is all that?" Killick asked. "Shelter materials, firewood, food." Dohan set everything down. "We should finish the walls before sunset." Varro slithered over to inspect the berries. "How do you know these are safe?" "The color and shape. I read about earth plants in the database." This was technically true. He had read about earth plants. He had also grown up eating them. They finished the shelter as the sun began to set. The temperature dropped quickly, just as Do-yoon had predicted. He started a fire using friction and dry grass, a skill he had learned at summer camp when he was 14. His teammates watched him like he was performing magic. "How did you do that?" Barrows asked, his deep voice filled with wonder. "You made fire from sticks. Friction creates heat. Heat ignites dry material. It is basic physics." They sat around the fire as darkness fell. The forest came alive with sounds. Insects chirping, owls hooting, something moving through the underbrush in the distance. "What was that?" Killick whispered. "Probably a deer," Do-yoon said. "They are not dangerous. How can you be so calm?" Varros demanded. "We are trapped on a death world. Everything here wants to kill us." Dahan looked up at the sky. Through a gap in the trees, he could see stars appearing one by one. Different stars than he was used to, arranged differently than the ones over Korea, but still beautiful. "Not everything," he said softly. "Some things here are just trying to live. Like us." Nobody responded to that dot the next morning. It rained. Do-hyun woke to the sound of water hitting leaves and smiled. His teammates woke to the same sound and screamed. "We are under attack." Varro shrieked, trying to coil his body as small as possible. "It is just rain," Do-hyun said. "Water from the clouds. It is not dangerous." The lecturer said it was corrosive. Do-hyun stepped out from under the shelter and let the rain fall on his face. It was cool and clean and wonderful. He stood there for a long moment, eyes closed, remembering home. When he opened his eyes, his 3 teammates were staring at him with absolute horror. "You should be burning," Killick said faintly. "I am fine. See?" Do-yoon held out his arms. "No damage. The rain here is just water. It is safe." Before anyone could respond, a growl came from the trees. Something large moved in the shadows. A bear emerged from the forest, brown and massive and curious about the strange creatures in its territory. Varros made a high-pitched sound and fainted. Barros tried to run, but tripped in the mud. Killick froze completely, his insectoid body locked in terror. Do-hyun stepped forward calmly. "Do not run," he said quietly. "Running triggers their chase instinct." He made himself look as large as possible, raising his arms. He maintained eye contact with the bear, but did not stare aggressively. He spoke in a low, steady voice. "Hey, there. You do not want us. We are not food. We are not a threat. Go find something else. Go on." The bear watched him for a long moment. It sniffed the air. It took one step forward, then another. Do-yoon did not move, did not flinch, did not show fear. The bear huffed, turned, and walked away into the forest. Killick made a sound like a broken engine. "How? How did you?" "Bears are mostly bluffing," Do-yoon said, his heart pounding despite his calm exterior. "They do not want to fight if they do not have to. You just have to show them you are not worth the trouble." He looked down at Varros, who was still unconscious in the mud. Someone should wake him up. We have 40 more hours to survive. They survived all 48 hours. They were the only team to complete the simulation without a single member dying or requiring medical extraction. When they emerged from the chamber, Commander Thelos was waiting with a confused expression on his face and a datapad full of impossible results. Rumors spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. Everyone was talking about Team 17. Everyone was talking about the quiet cadet from the first row who had somehow kept 4 people alive in a Deathworld simulation. Do-yoon tried to stay invisible. He went to classes early and left late. He ate in quiet corners of the dining hall. He studied in empty rooms where no one would bother him. But it did not work. His reputation had grown too large to hide from. Cadets he had never met approached him in corridors. They asked questions he could not answer honestly. How did you know about the bears? How did you start a fire? How did you eat those berries without dying? He gave vague responses about reading the academy database and studying Earth biology. Most cadets accepted this. Most cadets were too scared of Deathworlds to think too deeply about the answers. Kilik was different. Kilik had watched Do-yoon closely during those 48 hours. He had seen things that did not make sense. You were not scared, Kilik said one evening. They were sitting in Do-yoon's small room, studying for an upcoming exam. Not even once. When the bear came, when the rain fell, when night came, and the forest made those sounds, you never showed fear. I was scared, Do-yoon said. It was not entirely a lie. The bear had made his heart race. I just controlled it. No. Kilik's compound eyes studied him carefully. It was different. You were comfortable, like you had been there before. Do-yoon did not respond to that. Barrows had joined their friendship group after the simulation. The big Grothian followed Do-yoon everywhere now, declaring him a battle companion and a warrior of great cunning. This was embarrassing, but also somewhat useful. Nobody bothered Do-yoon when a 2-meter-tall rock creature was standing behind him. Little human-sized friend, Barrows said one day, using his favorite nickname for Do-yoon. You must teach me your secrets. How do you survive the crushing gravity? How do you breathe the poison air? How? I must become strong like you. I am not that strong, Do-yoon said, though compared to Barrows, this was clearly false. The Grothian could barely walk for an hour without needing rest. Do-yoon could walk all day if necessary. The biggest change came in the dining hall. Do-yoon was eating lunch, alone when someone sat down across from him. He looked up and saw a young woman with black hair, pulled back in a ponytail, and eyes that looked exactly like his own. She wore the same gray cadet uniform, but something about her posture, something about the way she held herself, was immediately familiar. You are terrible at hiding, she said in Korean. I figured out what you were on the second day. Do-yoon nearly choked on his food. He had not heard Korean in 3 months. The sound of it made his chest hurt with homesickness. Who are you? He asked in the same language. Kang Yuna. I transferred from the Outer Rim training facility 6 weeks ago. I am from Daegu originally. She smiled. And you are the famous cadet who survived the Earth simulation. Very impressive. You are. Human. Yes, just like you. She picked up a piece of fruit from her tray and examined it. This is terrible, by the way. Nothing here tastes right. I would kill for proper kimchi. Do-yoon laughed. He could not help it. The relief of meeting someone who understood, someone who knew what he was overwhelming. They met secretly after that. In empty classrooms, in maintenance corridors, in the observation deck late at night when everyone else was sleeping. They talked about home, about food and family and places they missed, about the strangeness of living among aliens who thought oxygen was poison and rain was acid. The best part, Yuna said one night, is when they talk about humans like we are monsters, pursuit predators, persistence hunters, beings who heal from broken bones and drink poison for fun. We do drink poison for fun, Do-hyun pointed out. Alcohol is technically a toxin. True, but they make it sound so dramatic. She imitated Commander Phyllis's deep voice. The humans chase their prey for hours until it collapses from exhaustion. They consume fermented plants that destroy brain cells. They are madness given form. Do-hyun laughed again. He had laughed more in the 2 weeks since meeting Yuna than in the 3 months before. But not everyone was laughing. Varos had been humiliated by the simulation. He was supposed to be the leader. He was supposed to be the one who saved everyone. Instead, he had fainted at the sight of a bear and had to be carried to shelter by a cadet half his size. He began investigating. Do-hyun's background. It was not difficult. The Academy's records were disorganized, and a few bribes to administrative staff opened doors that should have stayed closed. Varos discovered that Do-hyun's species classification was listed as pending due to a transfer error. He discovered that Do-hyun had come from the Outer Rim territories, where the Galactic Union's reach was thin and record-keeping was poor. He discovered that something was very wrong with Cadet Park Do-hyun. Meanwhile, Do-hyun made his mistake in xenobiology class. Professor Rillick was a Kovani, a species that looked like a floating jellyfish with too many eyes. She was lecturing about Deathworlds and the species that evolved on them. It is a well-established fact, Professor Rillick said, a voice like wind chimes, that no Deathworld has ever produced a spacefaring civilization. The evolutionary pressures are too extreme. Species from such worlds are focused purely on survival. They do not develop the intelligence necessary for advanced technology. Do-hyun's hand went up before he could stop it. Yes, Cadet Park. With respect, Professor, could the opposite also be true? Could survival pressure drive intelligence? Problem solving is essential for surviving dangerous environments. Tool use helps overcome physical limitations. Cooperation allows groups to face threats that individuals cannot. The class went quiet. Professor Rillick's many eyes blinked slowly. That is an interesting theoretical point, she said. But we have no evidence to support it. Every Deathworld species we have observed is purely reactive, not creative. But have we observed them properly? If a Deathworld species developed intelligence, developed technology, developed civilization, would we recognize it? Or would we be too scared of their planet to look closely? More silence. Do-hyun realized he had said too much. Every cadet in the room was staring at him. Professor Rillick made a sound that might have been a laugh. You have a creative mind, Cadet Park. Perhaps too creative. The galaxy is what it is. Deathworlds produce survivors, not thinkers. That is simply the nature of things. The class continued, but Do-hyun could feel eyes on him. Suspicious eyes. Curious eyes. Frightened eyes. After class, Yuna found him in the corridor and punched his shoulder. Hard. What were you thinking? She hissed in Korean. You practically announced yourself. I could not help it. She was wrong. Of course she was wrong. We know she was wrong. But we are not supposed to know that. We are supposed to be mysterious transfer students with boring backgrounds, not walking proof that everything they believe about Deathworlds is false. Do-hyun rubbed his shoulder. Yuna hit harder than she looked. I will be more careful, he said. You had better be. Because someone is already asking questions about you. Who? Yuna's expression darkened. Varos. He's been bribing staff, pulling records, talking to anyone who will listen. He knows something is strange about you. He just does not know what yet. Do-hyun thought about the Serpentine cadet, about the hatred in his eyes after the simulation, about how dangerous wounded pride could be. Let him look. Do-hyun said finally. He will not find anything. But even as he said it, he was not sure he believed it. In his room that night, Do-hyun looked at a photograph he kept hidden in his belongings. His family at the beach in Bizen, his mother and father smiling, his little sister making a silly face at the camera. The ocean blue and endless behind them. He was 8,000 light years from home. He was surrounded by beings who thought his planet was a death trap and his species was a collection of monsters. He was lying every day just by existing, but he was still alive, still surviving, still adapting. That was what humans did after all. They survived, no matter what the universe threw at them. He put the photograph away and went to sleep, dreaming of rain and bears and the smell of pine trees in summer. Founders Day was the biggest event of the academy year. Every cadet attended. Every instructor attended. The High Marshal herself gave a speech about duty and honor and the glory of the Galactic Union. The assembly hall was decorated with banners from 100 different worlds. Music played through hidden speakers. The air smelled like celebration. Do-hyun sat in the 5th row with Kulik on one side and Boris on the other. Yuna was somewhere behind them, surrounded by her own group of friends. They had agreed not to sit together at public events. Too suspicious. The ceremony began with the usual traditions. Awards were given. Names were called. Cadets walked across the stage to receive medals and certificates for various achievements. It was long and boring, but everyone clapped and pretended to care. Do-hyun was starting to relax when he saw Varos moving toward the front of the hall. Something was wrong. Varos was not supposed to be moving. He was not receiving any awards. He had no reason to approach the stage. But there he was, slithering between rows of seats, his scales gleaming under the lights, his expression triumphant. "Kulik," Do-hyun whispered. "Something is happening." Before Kulik could respond, Varos reached the stage and climbed the steps. The current speaker, a mid-level officer giving a speech about logistics, stopped talking in confusion. "Excuse me," Varos said into the silence. "I apologize for the interruption, but there is a matter of great importance that all cadets must know." The High Marshal, an ancient Valorian named Siren, rose from her seat at the edge of the stage. She was tall and silver and radiated authority like heat from a sun. "Cadet, this is highly inappropriate. Return to your seat immediately." "With respect, High Marshal, I cannot. Not until the truth is revealed." Varos pulled a device from his uniform. He pressed a button and the massive holographic display behind the stage came alive. Data appeared. Records, transfer documents, classification files, and photographs. Photographs of Earth, photographs of humans. Photographs of Do-hyun and Yuna, their faces circled in red. "Fellow cadets," Varos announced, his voice filling the hall. "We have been deceived. There are spies among us. Infiltrators from the most dangerous planet in the known galaxy." The hall erupted in confused murmurs. Do-hyun felt his blood turn cold. Cadet Park Do-hyun and Cadet Kang Yuna are not what they appear to be. They are not from the Outer Rim territories. Their species classification was not a bureaucratic error. They are humans, natives of Earth, Category 12 Deathworld inhabitants sitting among us, pretending to be normal. The murmurs became shouts. Cadets turned to look at Do-hyun, their faces twisted with fear and confusion. The cadets near Yuna scrambled away from her, nearly falling over each other in their panic. "This is impossible," someone yelled. "Humans cannot survive outside Earth. They are monsters." Boris placed a massive hand on Do-hyun's shoulder. "Is this true, little friend? Are you from the Death Planet?" Do-hyun did not answer. He could not. His throat had closed up. High Marshal Siren raised her hand, and the hall fell silent. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of decades of command. "Cadet Park, Stand. Do-hyun stood. His legs felt weak. Every eye in the hall was on him. He could see fear in most of them. Fear and horror and disgust. Is what Cadet Varro says true? Are you human? Are you from Earth? The silence stretched. Do-hyun thought about lying. Thought about denial. Thought about all the ways he could try to explain this away. But he was tired of hiding. Tired of pretending. Tired of being ashamed of where he came from. Yes, I'm Marshall, he said clearly. I was born in a city called Bizen on the southern coast of a peninsula on Earth. I've lived there my entire life until I came here. Gasps filled the hall. Several cadets actually screamed. Commander Thalos, sitting in the instructor section, had turned a shade of blue that suggested he might faint. I have experienced earthquakes, Do-hyun continued. Typhoons. Summer's hot enough to kill most species in this room. I have swum in Earth's oceans. I have hiked its mountains. I have been stung by bees, bitten by mosquitoes, and once got food poisoning from street food that was absolutely worth it. Someone laughed nervously. The sound was quickly silenced. High Marshal Siren studied him with ancient eyes. You sat through Commander Thelos's lecture on Earth. You heard every horror he described, every death statistic. And you said nothing? I took notes. His information was mostly accurate, although Do-hyun hesitated. He did underestimate our hurricanes. They are much worse than he described. More nervous laughter. More silence. Commander Thalos rose from his seat and walked toward Do-hyun. His 8 limbs were trembling. His 3 eyes were wide with something between terror and fascination. You were there, he said slowly. In my class. In the first row. When I said no cadet could survive Earth, you snorted. I apologize for that, Commander. It was disrespectful. Disrespectful? Thalos made a sound that might have been a laugh. I spent 20 years studying Deathworlds. I was considered the leading expert in the fleet. And you sat there, taking notes, while I taught you about your own home. Your lecture was educational, Commander. I learned how other species view my world. Thalos shook his head slowly. I described Earth as a death trap. A planet of monsters and disasters and unending danger. It is dangerous, Do-hyun admitted. But it is also beautiful. The way sunlight looks through autumn leaves. The sound of waves on a beach at night. The smell of rain on hot pavement in summer. Earth is not just a death world, Commander. It is home. To 8 billion people who love it. Yuna had stood up now. She walked down through the rows of empty seats, the cadets around her giving way like water around a stone. She stopped next to Do-hyun and took his hand. Kang Yuna, she said to the High Marshal. Also from Earth, from a city called Dagu. Also human. Also tired of pretending. The hall was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Killick stood up. His insectoid body was trembling, but his voice was steady. Do-hyun saved my life in the simulation. He saved all our lives. He showed no fear because he was home. Not because he was a monster. Because Earth was familiar to him. Vara stood next. He is my battle companion. Humans are strange, yes. But strange is not evil. Strange is not dangerous. He has been nothing but kind to me. Slowly, other cadets began to stand. Not many, just a few. Cadets who had gotten to know Do-hyun over the past months. Cadets who had seen past their fear to the person underneath. Varros watched this with growing frustration. You cannot be serious. They are Deathworld creatures. They should be quarantined, expelled, sent back to their horrible planet. Cadet Varros. High Marshal Serene's voice cut through the noise. You have disrupted a sacred ceremony, accessed classified records without authorization, and created panic among your fellow cadets. Your concerns will be noted, but your methods are unacceptable. Return to your quarters. You will face disciplinary review." Vars opened his mouth to protest, then saw the look in the High Marshal's eyes. He closed his mouth and slithered away, defeated. The High Marshal turned back to Do-Yoon and Yuna. "Humans," she said, testing the word. "I have read the contact reports. Your species was deemed too dangerous for direct integration, too unpredictable, too resilient." "With respect, High Marshal," Do-Yoon said, "we are not dangerous unless we need to be. We just want to learn, to grow, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Earth may be a death world, but that does not make us monsters. It just makes us survivors." Siren was quiet for a long moment. The entire hall waited. The Galactic Union was built on the principle that all sentient species deserve a chance to prove themselves. She said finally, "We have never tested that principle against a death world species before. Perhaps it is time we did." She looked at the assembled cadets. Cadet Park and Cadet Kang will remain at this academy. They will complete their training. They will be treated as cadets, not curiosities. Anyone who disagrees with this decision may file a formal protest through proper channels. She paused. "But I suspect most of you will find, as I have today, that humans are not as frightening as our textbooks suggest. They are merely different. And in this galaxy, different is rarely as dangerous as ignorance." Do-Yoon felt Yuna squeeze his hand. He squeezed back. They were exposed. They were known. There was no more hiding. But somehow, standing there in front of everyone, he did not feel scared. He felt free. 6 months changed everything. After the revelation on Founders' Day, the Galactic Union held emergency meetings. Politicians argued. Scientists debated. Military leaders worried. The discovery that humans had been living among them, training at their academies, walking their stations, created waves of fear and fascination that spread across 100 worlds. Some called for Earth to be quarantined forever. Some called for immediate war. Some called for careful study and slow integration. The debates went on for weeks. But at the academy, something different was happening. Do-Yoon woke up on a Tuesday morning and found 17 cadets waiting outside his door. They were not angry. They were curious. They wanted to know about Earth, about humans, about the strange creatures who had been hiding among them all along. He answered their questions. He told them about cities and forests and oceans. He told them about music and art and food. He told them about his family in Bizen, about his little sister who wanted to be a dancer, about his mother's cooking and his father's terrible jokes. He made them laugh. He made them think. By the end of the week, he was eating lunch with a group of 20 cadets from 12 different species. By the end of the month, he had more friends than he could count. Yuna experienced the same thing. Her friendly personality and quick wit won over cadets who had initially been terrified of her. She taught them human expressions. She introduced them to Korean pop music. She showed them photographs of Daegu and explained what cherry blossoms were and why humans traveled great distances just to watch them fall. The fear did not disappear completely. Some cadets still avoided them. Some instructors treated them differently. But the majority of the academy community began to see them not as monsters from a death planet, but as people. Strange people, certainly. People who could breathe poison and survive crushing gravity and walk calmly past predators that would kill anyone else. But still people. Commander Thalos requested a private meeting with Do-Yoon 3 weeks after the revelation. They met in his office. A small room filled with models of Deathworld creatures and charts of dangerous planetary systems. "I have been teaching the Deathworld curriculum for 20 years, Thalos said without greeting. "I thought I understood these places. I thought I understood the creatures they produced." "You understood the data," Do-Yoon said. Data is not the same as experience. No, it is not. Thalos was quiet for a moment. I would like you to help me teach the class next semester. The Earth module specifically. Diane blinked. You want me to teach? Co-teach. Provide perspective. Help the cadets understand that Earth is not just a collection of dangers. You said it yourself. It is home. Perhaps if they hear that from someone who actually lives there, they will understand better. I have one condition. Name it. We include a section on Earth's beauty. Not just the dangers. The auroras at the poles. The coral reefs. The way the sky looks at sunset over the mountains. If cadets are going to learn about my world, they should learn all of it. Thalos considered this. That is acceptable. Though I admit I do not understand the appeal of watching frozen light in the sky. That is because you have never seen it, Commander. Trust me, when you do, you will understand. The curriculum changed. The next semester, cadets learned about Earth's terrors, but they also learned about Earth's wonders. They saw images of the Grand Canyon and the Great Barrier Reef and the Northern Lights dancing across Arctic skies. They heard recordings of whale songs and thunderstorms and crowds cheering at football matches. They began to understand that a Deathworld was not just a place of death. It was a place where life fought hard to exist and created beauty in the struggle. Graduation came faster than Do-Yoon expected. 6 months felt like 6 weeks. Suddenly he was standing with his class in the Great Hall, wearing the formal white uniform of a Galactic Union officer candidate. Waiting for the ceremony to begin. The Academy Council had selected him as class speaker. The first human to address a Galactic Military Academy graduation. He had tried to refuse, but Yuna had threatened to punch him again, and Killick had made sad eyes at him, and Boros had literally picked him up and carried him to the practice stage. He had given up arguing. High Marshal Siren introduced him. The applause was warm but uncertain. Many of the parents and dignitaries in the audience had never seen a human before. They watched him approach the podium like he might explode at any moment. Do-Yoon looked out at the crowd. He saw Killick and Boros in the front rows. He saw Yuna a few seats away, giving him a thumbs up. He saw Commander Thalos standing at attention with the other instructors, his 3 eyes focused and curious. He even saw Varos sitting in the back. The Sci-Fi had served his punishment and returned to classes. He and Do-Yoon were not friends and probably never would be. But there was something like respect in his eyes now. Or at least tolerance. Do-Hyun took a breath. Earth air would have been better. This recycled stuff always tasted wrong. But it would do. When I came to this academy, he began, I was told my planet was a death world. And that is true. Earth is dangerous. Our atmosphere is poison to most species. Our gravity crushes bones. Our weather destroys cities. Our wildlife includes creatures that can kill with a single bite and insects that carry diseases across continents. He paused. But Earth taught us something that the rest of the galaxy seems to have forgotten. It taught us that struggle creates strength. That hardship builds bonds. That the universe does not give you what you can handle. You become capable of handling what the universe gives you. Silence in the hall. Every eye on him. 8 billion humans live on Earth. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We have built civilizations and knocked them down and built them again. We have climbed our highest mountains and dived into our deepest oceans. We have split the atom and walked on our moon and sent our voices across the stars. He looked at his classmates. The Galactic Union classified Earth as unlivable. But we live there. Every day, we wake up and face a world that is trying to kill us. And we do not just survive. We thrive. We love. We create. We dream. He thought about his family. About the beach in Bizen. About rain falling on his face. You asked if any cadet could survive Earth. The answer is probably not. At first, the gravity would tire you. The atmosphere would confuse you. The wildlife would terrify you. You would struggle with the heat and the cold and the storms that seemed to come from nowhere. He smiled. But if you had a human beside you, you would be surprised what you could endure. We would show you where to find water and what plants are safe to eat. We would build you shelter from the rain and keep watch while you slept. We would face the bears and the wolves and the mosquitoes with you, because that is what we do. We adapt. We protect. We never give up. His voice grew stronger. Humanity is now part of the Galactic Union. We are your allies, your classmates, your friends, and we bring with us everything Earth taught us. Our resilience, our creativity, our stubborn refusal to die when the universe decides it is our time. He looked at the back of the hall, at the scared parents and worried dignitaries. You have been afraid of us. That is understandable. Deathworlds are supposed to produce monsters, not partners. But here I stand, a human, a cadet, a graduate of your academy. And I promise you this. His voice echoed in the silence. Whatever darkness the galaxy faces next, whatever enemies rise, whatever challenges lie ahead, you will not face them alone. Humans are with you now. And we have been surviving the impossible since before your ancestors reached for the stars. He paused one last time. So welcome us. Learn from us. Let us learn from you. Together, we might build something neither of us could build alone. He stepped back from the podium. For a moment, there was silence. Then Killick stood up and began to clap, his thin arms moving rapidly. Barros stood next, his massive hands producing a sound like thunder. Una jumped to her feet, cheering. Commander Thalos joined, his 8 limbs applauding in a complex pattern that indicated highest respect. The applause spread. Slowly at first, then faster. Cadets, instructors, parents, even the scared dignitaries in the back began to clap by the end. The entire hall was standing. The sound was overwhelming. It filled Dolian's chest and made his eyes sting with tears he refused to shed. He looked at Una. She was crying openly, smiling through her tears. They were not hiding anymore. They were not pretending. They were human, and they were exactly where they belonged, among the stars, with the rest of the galaxy. Ready for whatever came next. In the back of the hall, Commander Thalos, who had once taught that Earth could only produce monsters, found himself cheering louder than anyone else. He still did not understand humans. He probably never would. But he was beginning to think that was exactly the point. Some things were not meant to be understood. Some things were meant to be admired. And some things, like the strange resilient creatures from a Category 12 Deathworld, were meant to stand beside you when the darkness came. Humanity had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.